Good evening, everyone. This is the Finance and Shared Services Committee meeting for the month of September. I have with me today board members, the President, Mrs. DePayne, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Purell, Dr. Peck, and from the administrative staff, I have Dr. Lehman and Ms. Allen. We do not have a very big agenda, but we will still get started with the monthly bill list. It's again a very control one point, I'm gonna get you the total. I think it's $1.522,000 some change. Again, summer month, so this is the bill list for August. That's why we're seeing it to be so slim. I think we only had amongst the big items, other than the payroll and the utilities, it was mostly tuition for ESY, our students going out of district. I'm going to open up to the board members if they have any questions on the bill list. Seeing none, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is the attorney invoice for the month of July. We have an invoice of $19,800 for the attorney invoice. Did any of the board members have any concerns or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to dive into the third item on the agenda, which actually stems off of the bill list. One thing that has been very good with using the Bush Law Firm for the past almost year is that they bucket their services and we're able to see what we're spending on every service. Yeah. And what we have flagged as a concern, I have flagged as a concern for the last couple months has been our OPRA costs. So just so the public knows, I just said our bill list was, our bill was $19,000. Our OPRA costs were $11,000.
Out of the 19%, or in addition to?
No, so total attorney invoice was 19. Okay. And our OPRA was 11. And last month also our OPRA was significantly high, and I had raised concern. Now it's not every month that number. We do range, and I went back 12 months, thankfully, because they bucket it, and it's easy to go back 12 months, and I saw what we've been paying. We've also paid $200 one month. We paid $2,000. We paid $7,000, but for the last 2 months consecutively, this was a little high. So I brought it to Laura as a concern. There have been a high number of OPRAs in the last 2 months. That does add to the cost, but it also started a conversation in my head, something that I had seen at a workshop 3 years ago, and I brought it to Dr. Chandy, and I think I brought it again to her last year when our cost started going up. There are tools out there that you can use that reduces the manpower that we use and can also redact for us. So the reason I am bringing it up here is to get everybody's thoughts. If you've heard anything from other districts, so what I did before this meeting was I did reach out through NJSBA Connection, thanks to Ms. Ratner for introducing me to that, to other districts to see what they're doing and what their costs are like. Nobody does see costs like ours, but Monroe is unique that way. And while it's a freedom of information that people have a right to do the OPRA, we do have to draw a line where our costs are going on that. So I thought it would be a good discussion to have in this public committee meeting so that those people that are listening can also understand the impact of OPRA and be more judicious when they make those requests, because it may not be obvious, but some of the things can be directly questioned to administrators instead of using OPRA as a tool. So if you have a concern about a transportation issue, a curriculum issue, or something that we as board members did, I think it just helps if your first mode of communication is directly to the administrators or the board president asking for some clarity. And if you don't get what you're looking for, and you feel like something is being hidden from you, then Freedom of Information Act can kick in and you can then use OPRA as a tool. when you submit an Oprah request, it has to go through the due process. The Oprah secretary has to pull up all the records, has to redact them, has to use the attorney's help. And that's how we already have an Oprah secretary that does the work on it. Then we use the attorney services. And what we're discussing tonight is the attorney service, but it's also a lot of manpower going at our office. Go ahead.
Does the Oprah request, so we have an Oprah secretary, every single Oprah we get, is there any that are deciphered in-house?
Yes,
Or does every single one go to the attorney?
they get,
I mean, I see, unless I'm not getting, but I see like sometimes we'll get like, there was this Oprah request or that Oprah request, but I don't,
So
See
Open Machine will
why.
review everything that we are fulfilling or what is still pending. So that's a public record. But what I understand is our first step is our secretary. Our second step is the redaction, which is legal, which is their attorney. You want to?
why can't the secretary?
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
question. Why?
Like
are we
it's
sending-
mostly names and
Yeah,
stuff like that, like I don't know why.
Didn't we send it out to?
Paying attorney, like why, I thought the whole
Yeah.
purpose of hiring this Oprah secretary originally
Shed some light on
was
that.
to,
I know that we do.
do
have
this.
the ability to do that.
I know a lot of places where people get Oprahs and it's redacted by whoever, the person that handles it in that place or in the town. Like it's mostly the redaction, you could talk to an attorney and say like, these things are always redacted, the person's name, the kid's name, whatever.
But it's not always that simple. So my conversation on NJSBA Connection, when I was talking about the different tools that
Yeah.
people have explored, they said that tools will reduce your own man hours, but it doesn't really alleviate the attorney involvement that much. Now, we've had Oprah requests with 1,500 pages, 900 pages. I've been looking at the recent ones that have.
I haven't seen that.
And
Where are they at?
I did seek that information from Laura, but Oprah Machine has everything.
So I'll just share, in Jamesburg, I inquired, and Dr. Vani, our superintendent, said typically most of our Oprah requests are fairly straightforward, vendors asking about bids, things like that, so most of them are completed in-house. But when it becomes something with personnel, teachers, students, that does go out to the attorney. We just don't have as much volume of Oprah requests, so we don't typically have much on a regular basis.
So
Going
those
to
were the
the attorney.
questions, those were the questions that came to me on connection that, what, I think you should start at finding out why Monroe has so many requests. I said, I already know why Monroe has so many requests. I have an answer to that question, and I don't think that's avoidable. That's what FOIA, gives everybody. But that's why I said it's better to educate the public to use their first line of approach, where if that information isn't really, nobody wants to hide it, people will give it to you with an email to the right person. It could be the board president, it could be the superintendent, start there. And then if you don't get the information, then file for an Oprah.
My question is, I thought last year, when we had the overabundance and it was overwhelming our Oprah secretary, we asked Bush and Bush to take some on. Are we still doing that? Is he still being overwhelmed?
at times, so, there are certain times, unfortunately, sometimes the timing is that we're overwhelmed with Oprah requests, and at the same time, we're overwhelmed with registrations or something else. So that's when there might be some more help with the attorneys, because it's just everything else. I mean, if it's a month where we don't have registrations, or there's a smaller amount of Oprahs, it's manageable, but sometimes the timing of when everything comes in is.
So at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
registration,
Summer
summer, things like that, then it wanes down with,
Yeah.
Bush and Bush. And,
Yeah.
okay.
So just to give you a number, summer months, we had, I believe July had 23 and
Yes.
August had 24
Yeah.
Oprahs.
Yeah.
Whereas there might be months where there are just maybe 7 or 10, right? So, or 4. So that volume plus registration for
Right.
schools being at 8.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it's a lot. Well, one of our jobs is to raise a concern and the other is to provide solutions. So I propose to the administration, Dr. Lehman, is that we go out for an RFP. I have shortlisted 4 vendors you could research and then maybe ask for an RFP to do. I don't think that we are ready to go out and get a tool, but I feel like we should know what are the capabilities of the tool and whether or not they will help us. So in this last 12 months, we paid close to $40,000 for Oprah.
Hmm.
And I feel if we were to go out to an RFP and find out that one of these vendors is going to be a fraction of that cost yearly, then, I don't know what the year before was because Porzio did not bucket it that way, and we didn't have enough time between seeing this and the finance committee meeting. If previous years have been similar, which again, Monroe has been heavy on Oprah, not just this year, it's always been heavy on Oprah. There are ups and downs. If we can get a solution that can help us alleviate that $40,000 to half of it or less than half of it, then this is a long-term thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, share those with us. We can also, touch base with whoever they are and see if they're working with other districts and get feedback on them as well.
So what Cherry Hill president shared with me was just FYA, but they did say that it doesn't alleviate all of your attorney thing. But when I was researching online, what I happened to have read most places was that they're all AI based. And these days lawyers are using a lot of AI too. So they're all being able to redact a lot, for the first line of control. And then for anything that needs more deliberations, we could send it to the attorney. So I'm going to email this to you as well. Next request, Logical and GovQA. So GovQA seems to be something that bigger organizations use, but I feel like the first three, just FOIA, Next Request, and Logical so basically these are tools that don't just do the redaction, they manage the intake and delivery. So from taking in to delivering, there is a manual piece to it where you would be supervising it and then deciding when they might flag it and you might send it to the attorney, but a lot of it is automated. So at this point, all I'm asking for is we go out and get a code. We ask them for what the tool does, what would it be able to do for us as a district, given what we deal with, and what it would cost us. And we might have a long-term gain to it. And do you have any thoughts on that? You think it's worth the shot?
It's a worth a shot. Look, we should try it. It's pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no harm in exploring. Yep, and seeing, and even having a conversation, and I realize we used the firm for assistance in Oprah's, but even getting an attorney's perspective on automating or, using one of these tools. Is there a history of someone kind of getting caught, like in an improper
Yes,
response or
100%.
something like that? And then what is the risk or what is the cost associated with that? So I'm sure that could potentially erase any savings in the future too. So,
100%.
but I think it's,
That's
I'm always
definitely
open
one of
for-
the aspects of how we evaluate a tool, how successful have they been, and
Correct.
have there been any lawsuits? The other aspect of this conversation in my head was, we did have a policy discussion on this. I have to say this was 22 or early 23, where we were, so back in the old days, Oprah's would be paper. So there used to be a cost to the taxpayer when it went over a certain kind of paper. These days, everything is online, so that has become a gray area. We have, as a district, consulted with the attorney, and a recent Oprah request, which was over 1,400 pages, was going to be very costly to us. So we let the taxpayer know, based on a calculation between the business office and attorney, that it would cost the taxpayer X amount of dollars if they wanted to fulfill that request. They chose not to at that point. So I would like this committee to ask the policy committee to review the Oprah policy and maybe outline this very clearly in the policy document. It can be a case basis, and then we take attorney's advice. We should have a guideline based on the current method of fulfilling an offer.
So I think it's addressed, how much you can charge, for something that's voluminous, it's gonna take a lot of time. So we can charge, the lowest, the salary, hourly salary at the lowest rate of the person, the secretary, basically, that is doing it. Use her hourly rate. And we have to let them know what it would be in advance. We can't really, and it's a case by case basis. We can't really set a fee schedule in advance or anything? Because it's based on case by case and who the lowest
The
salary.
threshold is, so I believe when we reviewed that policy, the old policy had a threshold based on the page count, and we
Yeah,
discussed
I
that.
think they
So,
decided that it was, like a day's work. I believe the old policy might have been like a day's work, so it was based on like 800, like if they said one page is, a minute. So they determine like how many minutes are in a day and how much that would give you the threshold. So if we were to, so I think that's something, you know, again, it's maybe case by case basis, but if we decided it was gonna be, one day's work or maybe less. To fulfill, we would send out a letter saying this is what the charge would be.
so is that in the policy, or is that,
It's,
un-
in the policy now regarding how much,
yeah,
I don't know that that's in the policy. I think that was something, that was discussed with the attorney previously.
do you think, Mr. Payne, is worth bringing it up in a policy meeting to review?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see what the threshold is, and based on the current procedure, that it just has to be more aligned to
No,
what we're doing.
I agree with you.
And,
I wrote a note to send to Carmen, or do you want to contact Carmen?
I could do that, absolutely. I think our recommendation from this committee would be, one, to go out and speak to whatever, you know, I'll send you the names, but you guys can decide which ones to contact. You could even add to that list based on what you find out from your peers in the district or other district. And then the other recommendation would be to Ms. Alvarez to review this in the policy committee. We don't want to discourage people from doing Oprah, but it's all going out of the same pocket, the taxpayer's pocket. And if you're paying those taxes and they're not really directly impacting student achievement, then that money is just an operational inefficiency. So if our policy clearly outlines at what point we'll start charging them, you know, sometimes Oprah requests are very broad instead of being very specific. So when it's broad and legally, they have to pull in everything that falls
I don't
within.
think anymore. I think the local law's changing.
So
It has to
we
be
did change
specific
the
to
last-
certain things.
yeah, it has to be-
It's not like it used to be.
Our recent ones with the keywords, the ones that we
Yeah.
went back with,
Yeah.
1,400 pages, had a lot of keywords in there. Just in 2 months, we had so many pages, so.
Yeah, it's gotta be specific, otherwise there's no
Yeah.
request.
So I don't know if the policy was updated since the law changed, back
Probably
a
not.
year. It was all-
That's another reason to, yes, another reason to look at it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'll reiterate to the public that's listening, I know it's my third time saying it. This tool, this power, that you have in your hand, it does cost money. Use it wisely. Don't make it the first approach. Reach out to the people who can give you the information. If you don't get the information, then you're more than welcome to do an Oprah. It's your right. But let's be conscious together about the
And I
money.
would suggest that you repeat what you just said at the next week's meeting.
Oh, absolutely. I will do that.
Put it in your report briefly.
I will put it in.
And that's a good suggestion, because you'll have maybe more people here, you'll have, you know, more people listening. You know, people listen not too much to the committee meetings, but at a regular meeting, you're gonna have more of a captive audience, and what you said should be said.
Agreed. I'll do that. Absolutely. Anything else? Anybody else needs to discuss any other agenda items? All right, that concludes the Finance and Shared Services Committee meeting for September. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.